The rain fell in thick sheets, turning the dirt road into sludge. The sky hung low, choked with rolling black clouds that pulsed with lightning. The wind howled through the trees like a dying breath, shaking the old house on the hill. Inside, the family sat together in the flickering glow of the fire, their evening routine unravelling as the storm raged outside. Then came the knock. It was soft at first, almost imperceptible beneath the howling wind. But when it came again, 3 deliberate hollow thuds, they knew it wasn't the wind. The father hesitated before opening the door. A man stood on the porch, soaked through, his clothes clinging to his skeletal frame. His skin was pale, almost translucent, his eyes sunken and dark, as if he hadn't slept in years. He looked past the father, scanning the house, his breath hitching in his throat. He stepped inside without a word. Water dripped from his clothes onto the wooden floor as he moved through the house with the familiarity of someone who had been there before. He ran his fingers along the walls, his touch slow and reverent, his lips trembling. At the farthest corner of the hallway, he pressed his palm against the wallpaper. The family watched as his fingers curled inward, gripping something invisible. And then, with a deep, wet crack, the wall split open. A hidden door swung outward, revealing a narrow stairway leading down into darkness. The air that rushed from below was thick and damp, carrying the scent of something rotten, something buried. The stranger gestured for them to follow. The stairs groaned under their weight as they descended into the basement. The candlelight flickered, casting jagged shadows against the stone walls. The deeper they went, the colder the air became, until each breath came out in a thin white mist. At the bottom, the ground was packed earth, damp and uneven. Chains hung from the ceiling, rusted and broken, some still locked around skeletal wrists. And then, beneath their feet, something crunched. Bones. They stretched out in every direction, tangled together, their surfaces yellowed with age. The skulls were the worst. Some were cracked open, split down the middle like rotting fruit. Others bore deep grooves in their surfaces, bite marks. The family recoiled, but the stranger moved forward, pushing aside the remains with his foot. His hands shook as he reached for the dirt, digging his fingers into the earth. He pulled something free, something wrapped in a faded, blood-stained cloth. Slowly, he unwrapped it. Inside was a book. Its cover was warped and swollen with moisture, its leather binding slick with something dark and unidentifiable. The pages stuck together as he peeled them apart, revealing smudged ink and frantic, slashing handwriting. The words were disjointed, half-mad scrawls etched deep into the paper. They live beneath the floors. They whisper when the house sleeps. They are still hungry. Then a page filled with names. Dozens of them. Some were crossed out, others circled. The ink smeared with what looked like fingerprints. The last name on the list had been written with a shaking hand, the letters jagged and uneven. It was the family's name. The mother clapped a hand over her mouth. The father staggered back, shaking his head, but the stranger only turned toward the farthest corner of the basement. There, the earth bulged upward, something beneath the surface pushing against the dirt. A mass of wood and metal jutted from the soil, the remnants of a coffin splintered and broken. The stranger knelt, pressing his hands into the damp ground. And then the dirt began to move. A deep, wet squelch echoed through the basement as the earth shifted, sinking inward. A hand burst free, grey, slick, its fingers twisted into claws. Another hand followed, grasping blindly, pulling something massive from the grave. The thing that rose was not human. Its body was wrapped in decomposing flesh, its limbs impossibly long, its face twisted into something obscene. Its mouth was an open wound, stretching too wide, revealing rows of teeth, black and jagged. Its eyes were hollow, dripping with thick, dark fluid. It did not walk. It crawled. The sound it made was worse than the sight of it. A deep, gurgling rattle. Like wet lungs gasping for air, the mother screamed. The father lunged for the stranger, demanding to know what he had done. But the stranger only smiled, his lips curling over teeth that were suddenly too sharp, too numerous. His skin sagged, splitting at the seams, something beneath it shifting, writhing. He had never been a man at all. The thing in the dirt rose higher, unfurling itself to its full height, its head scraping the basement ceiling. The candlelight flickered as the air thickened, turning to something humid, suffocating. The stranger's body collapsed into itself, his flesh peeling away in ribbons. Beneath it was something else, something boneless and slick, something with too many mouths. The basement walls breathed. From the cracks in the stone, more hands emerged, thin skeletal fingers grasping, clawing. Mouths opened where there should have been none. The bones on the floor rattled, shifting as something unseen moved beneath them. The house itself had awakened. The family turned to run, but the basement door had vanished. The stairs crumbled into nothing. There was no way out. The thing in the dirt gurgled, stretching its jaw wider, wider, unhinging with a sickening pop. And then the lights went out.